Hi, I'm Joanna,
And I'm Tommy Geary.
and we are both life coaches. But Tommy brings something special to the table because he is helping overwhelmed and stressed dads to find freedom and fulfillment. So I'm so excited to talk to you about this because I believe that people still don't know enough about coaching. And sometimes maybe they will look for somebody to help them, but there is so much more benefits in working with somebody who already invested their time, energy, money into finding solutions for a specific problem. And dads who are overwhelmed and stressed are the group of people that you help.
Thanks for having me. I'm pumped to be having this conversation. I love talking about this stuff. The dads that I help are high performing dads. They're doing really well in life in a lot of areas. They have good jobs, they're business owners, they're high level performers, they have an awesome family, great kids, great wife or partner. Everything's good, but they're overwhelmed, they're stressed out, they're that kind of state of being. When we're overwhelmed and stressed out too much, we don't show up as our best self, right? We have this awesome life, but we're not showing up amazingly for our families, or we're not showing up amazingly for ourselves. So those are the dads that I work with.
So are you saying that there is a way out of this overwhelm and stress?
There sure is. Yeah. And that's the work that we do together. So with the dads that I coach, I mean, it was me to a certain extent, and it still is me. Like sometimes I get overwhelmed. I have my own business. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I have a house that needs projects done. And I also like to take care of myself and want time for myself. That's a lot of different responsibilities in a lot of different areas. And when we think of all those things and how much we have to get done and all this stuff that has to happen, we start to feel overwhelmed. And what I like when I work with guys, this is the same thing that I do on myself, right? When we're overwhelmed, when we're stressed, there are steps you can take to level your emotions, level your brain out, and find some calmness. So instead of procrastinating and worrying about everything but not doing anything, you can actually start taking action on the stuff that you want to get done.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you have a secret to overcoming procrastination.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a big secret, but if we dive into like step-by-step process, like the biggest thing is being able to get everything out of our heads. So our brains are meant to process, they're meant to think creatively, they're meant to dream about the future, and they're not meant to remember. They're not memory banks. So when we have all these different responsibilities swinging around in our head, our brains get really frantic and overwhelmed. So step one is like taking all those thoughts, all those things you have to do, and writing them on a piece of paper, like pen to paper, write it all out. And just that, like one step, is a step that dads can do, that really anyone can do, to start to change that state of overwhelm, stress, and start to slow down a little bit. Because that's really like one of the big things, right? We don't slow down enough. Our environment that we live in right now requires us to go, go, go. We need to be productive. We need to produce, and that's awesome. And there's a slowing down side to that. And I think for a lot of guys, for a lot of dads, that slowing down is difficult to take that time to slow down.
Very often women talk about self-care and self-love. It's more natural for women to talk about it. But I don't know, for example, because I don't work with dads, I don't know if this ever comes up for men.
Sometimes self-care and self-love is hiring a coach, right? When you decide to invest in your well-being, invest in your emotional and mental well-being, that is caring for yourself. So even like just showing up for yourself in a coaching session, in a men's group, like that is self-care. And that sometimes takes a lot from guys, because a lot of the times when we have, I'm going to use this term problem kind of loosely, like when we're overwhelmed, when we're stressed, when we have a lot to do, we think we have to figure it out for ourselves. We think like,
On your
oh,
own, right? It's
yeah,
hard to talk about it.
exactly. Yeah. Right. Like they're like, no one else is suffering. Like I'm on Instagram. Everyone else is doing well, showing me these awesome pictures. They're having fun. I'm at the farmer's market and like everyone's happy and got smiles on their face and the sun's shining and they're pushing their babies around and it's all good. Inside, so many dudes don't align with that outside great looking world. And it's hard to talk about. It's hard to talk about, to say that like, I feel stressed, I feel overwhelmed, I feel like I'm not getting enough done, I feel like I should be getting more done, and I'm flipping out at my kids all the time, and my wife and I are always arguing and butting heads. Like those conversations aren't happening, and that they're not always they're I guess when I talk to dudes, a lot of the time these dads are saying some of this stuff out loud for the first time. And um, that right there, letting that out, speaking about it is awesome, really brave and awesome.
And you have men's group?
I do. I have some group programs. So
Okay.
the Durable Dad is my group program.
Why do you think it's so hard for men to talk about what's going on for them on the inside? Why do they have to learn how to do this?
Because we weren't taught how to do it, I think. For dads, we come from a generation of men that were the providers, that were working 8, 9, 10, 11-hour days. And when they came home, they weren't emotionally available most of the time. If you were lucky, your dad was emotionally available. But growing up, if we cried, it was like, toughen up, man, not supposed to cry. If you lose your cool as a guy, it's like, settle down. Anger's not good. Don't be angry. Calm down. So our emotions, we've been trained that they don't matter, that we need to just like push them down and things need to be okay. Everything's good. That like if we do feel sad or if we do feel angry or afraid, there's something wrong and that's not right. And I think for dudes especially, like there's that disconnect can lead to a lot of overthinking, overanalyzing, trying to like figure out the right problem. And there's so much power in starting to connect with your emotions. And I mean, you know this, but science has also proven that there are the neurotransmitters that are in our brain are also in our heart. they're also in our gut, those same cells. There's intelligence in our body that we're not connected with. And sometimes our body starts to get upset about that, and it starts to get really stressed and worked up and like calling our attention, but we don't give it attention. And all that like might sound like kind of soft, kind of woo, like you were saying, for dudes especially. And I think that's why it's uncomfortable to slow down, because when we slow down, we do get in touch with our bodies and find that intelligence in our emotions. And it can feel weird and uncomfortable, but I know from myself when I started to do it, for men that I work with, that, man, it unlocks a whole lot of potential to be like your full self.
This is so good that you talked about emotions. You know what I noticed? That even women sometimes do it. People come here to me, or we on the phone, and people say, I don't want to sound negative, or they apologize for their emotions if they are only slightly on the negative side. And I say, no, in coaching, in this work, there is space for all of it. Because if people don't learn that it's okay to feel something, then it's like holding, the emotion wants to come in or come through you. But when we focus on holding the door, the emotion wants to come in, but we are holding the door, not letting that emotion to come in, so we can acknowledge it and let the emotion flow through us, that we are wasting so much of our energy, power, and we are not using our energy for creating our fulfillment, right? Or for being present with people around us.
Yeah, emotions are really interesting. So let's like take anger for an example. I was working with one dad, and we'll just call him John. And a lot of dudes come to me with, I'm losing my temper a lot. I'm going 0 to 100 and I don't know why. I don't want to do it. And they beat themselves up over it. Right? They yell at their kids. 5 minutes later, they're like, well, why did I yell? I did it again. I shouldn't have done this. This is wrong. And what I like to talk about around anger is that anger isn't the problem. Like, anger isn't their fault. It's not your fault that you're angry. But you are responsible for that anger and what to do with it, what to do with that energy, that angry energy. So what you were saying about people apologizing for their emotions, I think that's a big one with anger. I'm sorry I got angry, right? There's a slight wording there where it's like, I'm sorry how I acted, right? Like, we blow up at our kids and we want to go and repair that relationship. Coach told me this once, and it just was like, subtle. Apologize to your kids for how you acted, but don't apologize for the anger. I was feeling angry. Sometimes anger is there, and that's okay. But I shouldn't have acted the way that I did. There's a difference between the anger and the actions. So when you can create that separation, you are less reactionary to your emotions. When you realize that it's not your fault that you feel sad, it's not your fault that you're angry, you just are, and that's cool, that's okay.
This is big, Tommy. This is big. Especially that separation between reacting to anger and taking the anger out on other people. This is one thing. All right, there is something else people can do with their emotions, right? There are 4 things we can do with emotions, and you teach it to your clients. But being angry, feeling the anger, it doesn't make sense to, ultimately, it doesn't make sense to feel guilty or sad or sorry about it, because anger is just emotion, just like any other emotion. And that emotion shows us what's going on underneath. We have to find the source of that emotion and do some work there. And this is something, we can talk about it, but this is something that you do with people when you work specifically on their emotions, right? So you dig deeper. So that can understand their emotional life and what's going on in their mind, and at least let go of that guilt of feeling whatever they are feeling.
Yeah.
So that is big for the work on self-acceptance and self-care.
Self-acceptance, self-care, it can sound soft, but it is our work. And I think that there's the work that I do with dads, there's a flow. And we also work on our mindset. So our mind and our thoughts, and like how you work with people on their limiting beliefs and their stories, like though that's usually a great place to start, especially when we haven't been connected with our bodies for a long, long time. Some of us are more connected with our bodies, and some of us are not as connected. You know, people will say like, "Oh, I'm not good at my emotions. I'm not good at feeling." And it's like, well, you're human, so you are feeling, and you're feeling all the time. So like, it's a skill you can get better at, but we're all feeling. That's just what we do. And sometimes starting with our thoughts can clue us into the emotions. So when you have thoughts, which I think a lot of dads do, that I'm not doing enough, I should be doing more, I need to be trying harder, I messed up, like noticing those thoughts and pointing them out, like that's the cool thing about having a coach, right? You can also journal these kinds of thoughts, but having a coach will start being able to reflect and tell you, hey, look at that. You went to, I'm not enough again. You used that word, I need to again. And you start to see the patterns in yourself, like, oh, well, that feels like shit when I tell myself I should be doing more and I'm not doing enough. Like I'll use like the analogy, like with, if you were motivating your kid who's trying to ride a bike, would you tell them that like you messed up, you should be doing more, you should be better at that? Probably not. It's not the way we motivate people. But that's the way we talk to ourselves when we are trying to be more productive at work, or try to have more love and affection for our wives or our kids. Like if we don't get it right the first time, the way we try to remotivate ourselves is by beating ourselves down.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good, doesn't work, but yeah.
Because we do so much better from more positive and useful emotions. And we don't achieve better things because we punish ourselves. Because if we punish ourselves, we beat ourselves up, we feel emotions that are heavier. So how can we achieve something better from the heavier, darker place? It doesn't work, but in coaching, we can unpack it and dig deeper and find more useful emotions. Because I also think that another misconception about emotions is that people say, okay, I feel what I feel. What can I do about it? But you and I know that this is not the end of the story. Just because you feel that emotion, it's not a reason to kind of repress the emotion, but through the mental work, we can find different mindset, we can find something more useful. And the beauty of that is that when you work with a dad, you will help him find it within himself. It's not that you will tell him what to do, right? It doesn't work like this. You will help him uncover it within himself, because people have gold in their own minds if they only have the space to find it.
Yeah. There's a difference between teaching and coaching, right? Like I have the tools, like we started at the beginning talking about, writing all your things that you need to get done on a piece of paper. Great tool, great action you can take. I can tell you how to manage your time. I have communication skills that you can implement to speak to your spouse better and drop walls. But we can tell our clients what to do all we want. They're only going to do it if they believe they can do it. And they do believe they can do it, or else they wouldn't be talking to us. But those old patterns, those old thoughts block us from actually like accessing what you're saying, that like inner belief, that inner knowledge, that like, oh yeah, I got this, I can do this, let's try it out. If we're back to those stories of like telling ourselves we're not enough, we're not good enough, we need to be doing more, those feelings, they've been around for a long time. The dads that I work with have gotten to this point in life where they went to college, they got a college degree, they got a good job, they got a good wife and kids and family and a house, and like everything was kind of like set up by society for like your pattern for achievement. And so we were getting this external validation that like, you graduated college, good job, you got a good job, nice work. So the outside world's been telling us we're doing well and it feels good. Then when it's time to be a dad, if we're lucky, our wives are telling us that you're doing an awesome job, but we can't rely on that external validation anymore. And we have Father's Day, which is awesome. Father's Day, everyone tells us how great of a father we are. But besides that, there's nothing outside of us telling we're doing a good job. We have to find that inside. And when we don't find that inside, we start to not feel great. We start to get overwhelmed, try to do more outside of us to make us feel better.
What I wanted to add to this is that the society tells you what is a good dad, but a big part of this inner work is to decide what kind of dad do I want to be? How do I want to show up for my family? So it's creating yourself from inside out according to your unique values.
Yeah.
The decision has to come from the inside for a person to feel fulfilled, right?
Yeah, and what you said about like, what does a good dad mean to you? We have these cultural beliefs, how dads are portrayed on TV and in movies, and what we learn from our dads growing up or their generation, that dads need to be the providers. They need to sacrifice for their family. They need to be working really hard
I didn't know that.
No?
No.
Yeah. That's what's been kind of like shown to us.
Oh, okay, because I heard that women supposed to sacrifice for their family.
Right.
Never heard that dads have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you see, we have different things in our minds about what it means to be dad and what it means to be a mom. So
I know, and it's interesting because, and you can tell me this, on the woman's side and the motherly side, but there's a part of us that wants to sacrifice. We want to have that responsibility in our lives that our work is providing, that our work is caring for people, and like our kids, like we want to set a good example for them and give them a good life. Like that is motivating to me.
Mm-hmm.
But when we are sacrificing, there's a difference between sacrificing and being a martyr and
Yeah.
just falling on the sword and killing ourselves for our families. We don't want to do that, because then we don't bring a lot of fun and energy to the game. So I think there's like a paradox almost in parenting. Like I want to sacrifice, but I also have to take time for myself. I can't give it all away.
I, for example, wouldn't want anyone to sacrifice for me, because then I have the burden on myself to sacrifice for the other person. And then we are all sacrificing and nobody is living.
You're right. Like now I picture like a dad telling their kid, like, do you know how much I've sacrificed for you? Like, yeah, that's probably kind of poisonous.
Yeah.
So maybe we want, like, maybe that's that warrior energy that is in us, to want to put ourselves on the line, to want to push ourselves and know that that energy, that effort is going to the greater good. Is that better?
Oh my gosh. Day and night. Day and night.
Okay.
Because I can imagine if somebody sees himself as a warrior, then there is an element of strength and pride in it. Even for me, I'm not a warrior, and there was this energy of strength and something that elevated me when I heard the word. But when I hear sacrifice, it's like, oh no, no.
Okay. I like it. I like it.
The words have power. I can imagine how somebody can shift their energy when they come from, oh, I have to sacrifice, to, no, I'm a warrior.
Yeah.
I
I love that you prodded this out, because that word, like warrior and warrior energy, is talked about a lot in men's work. And I've kind of been like, well, what does that mean? And I actually was working with a couple guys. We were doing we were working on anger and the anger energy, and how throughout human history, like right now, we are living in the most peaceful time humans have ever lived in. For most of human history, we have been at war. Men have been soldiers fighting for their country, for their families, or we've been in situations that haven't been as comfortable as we are in right now. Food being delivered, air conditioning in our house, heating in our house. Like there were that warrior energy is inside of us, men and women. And that warrior energy can be used for good. And sometimes it comes out as, so what I struggle with is, how am I a warrior for waking up and running my business? How am I a warrior for really like my work, the work that I do on a day-to-day basis? How is that bringing warrior energy to it? And I don't know, there's a lot of bravery to get up and run your own business, and there's a lot of bravery to whatever your job is, to like speak your truth and to show up as your full self. Like that takes courage and bravery. And so there is something kind of drawing the line to, like, what's the modern day warrior look like?
And there is also a lot of bravery in being willing to open up and talk about your feelings.
Yeah. lots.
Yeah. So can you share an example of somebody you worked with, like somebody who struggled and then they worked with you and how their life changed?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many that
Pick one.
not like I've helped so many, but there's so many cool stories. And one dad I was talking to yesterday, we were talking about how, what his transformation has looked like. And he just gave me like a simple example, right? He was like, well, last night my daughter was sick all day and I was taking care of her all day. And then his wife in the evening was like, I have a work thing. You have the kids for the rest of the night. And he's like, the old me would have like rolled my eyes, would have been really like cussing under my breath. That night, I probably would have like sat on the couch, watched TV, told the kids to go play with themselves and like figure it out and put them in front of a screen or something like that. And he was like, when his wife told him that and that he had the kids that night, he said he leaned into it. He was like, yeah, all right, let's go. And they went on a bike ride. He took the dog on a walk. They all went on the walk together. And he was just like, it it was like a small example of like enjoying the little things instead of like fighting and shutting down.
Yeah. So he showed up to this task from different energy, from different feeling.
Yeah, I mean, so many of us put up a wall, and when our, when we're asked to do something that's a surprise and out of the ordinary and weren't part of our plans, we can like not accept it. We could put up a wall and argue and not allow it. And that wall is usually there to protect some other kind of energy. Like, right, we'll get triggered and we'll get angry, but really what we want is, I just want some peace and quiet. And you like, I don't know, when you think I want peace and quiet, I just want to relax, I just want to kick back, there's like a feeling of like sadness there. And that dad, anger was a big thing that we worked on, was allowing anger to be there, processing it, and then finding the emotion, finding the way that he wanted to show up. So even in this example, like he noticed that like he got triggered a little bit, but he was aware of that trigger and aware of that pattern. And he had, throughout our time, he did some other really cool things. He's been taking better care of himself. He's been playing tennis more. At work, he really like stepped it up and it was really cool to see. So throughout coaching, which is actually like another big thing about emotions, is like we celebrate. Like we celebrate the wins that you have along the way, because so often we don't celebrate. We don't let ourselves feel proud and
Because we
happy.
are never enough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like we haven't been able to feel that throughout most of our life. So when we're telling ourselves we're not never enough, we don't allow ourselves to celebrate. So while we've been coaching, we celebrated a few times and we leaned into that open emotion. And so you build this capacity for both sides. You can be angry and not react to it. And then you can be like, I like I want to lean into this. Like yeah, maybe a part of me doesn't want to go and walk the dog and take the kids on a bike ride, but remember that like love I've triggered into before? Like I do. There's a part of me that's like, yeah, let's go. Let's have some fun. And like that is like living your full life. That is being like wholly in the game.
When people come to coaching, it's not just the time they spend with the coach. They take what they learn and they improve their life. It overflows to all areas of their life. And even when you are not there to take him through this process, he will know, oh, this is happening in my head right now. This is going on for me now. All right. Okay, I have the power to change this, or I can show up to this difference. So there is an element of empowerment. And this is how this work on their mind and emotions in coaching overflows and keeps on giving in life for years.
Yeah. I mean, it's a game changer. It was a game changer for me. Like when I was kind of noticing in my corporate job that I wasn't fully there and fully passionate, I saw Brenda, my wife. She had a coach for her business and it bled over into her personal life. And I was like, whoa, there's something there. And I didn't get a coach right away. But then when I was catching myself kind of not getting outside as much, I was eating from the vending machine in the afternoons and I was looking forward to coming home. But then when I was home, I didn't have any energy. I was exhausted. I was checking out. I was on my phone. And there was this one moment when Brenda was like, how was your day? And I remember sitting on the couch and being like, I feel like I'm just wasting my time right now. And that was when I got a coach, and like it turned things around. Like I would have been fine without a coach. I would have like gotten through life and everything would have been okay. But having that coach kind of sparked the change a little bit more. There was some accountability, there was some direction, and pointing out of like what was getting in my way. Like you talk about limiting, like, oh, notice that you have this pattern of belief, like it, and it made a difference slowly but surely. Like you start seeing changes in your life and the people around you. That's why I love working with dads, is that the ripple effect of a dad doing this work is so powerful. I mean, it's the same with moms, of course, and everyone in the world. But for me, like, because I can connect with dads and I work with them, it's like you're raising the next generation. Like when a dad can be open to his emotions and teach his kids that emotions are okay and feel, like that's going to make the next generation so much more whole and full. And a dad goes into work every day, and like the effect that him being a better person ripples throughout his business and his clients and his employees. It's cool. It's impactful.
Mm-hmm. Okay. If somebody wants to work with you, how do they find you?
They can find me on Instagram at Tommy We Embark, or they can find me online at nowweembark.com. Right now, if you go to our website, there's a tool up there that's free. You can look at it. It's how to go from professional mode to dad mode. So it's a quick 2-step tool to get you out of that kind of work go mode and into the present dad, a little more energy at home for your family.
Thank you. And your Instagram is awesome. And so Tommy, I could talk for another hour with you or more, but let's wrap it up for today.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for talking about this. I love this for you and for dads, because there is hope for you. You don't have to be overwhelmed. There is a way for you to find fulfillment, and the way to it is through yourself. You already have the gifts within you. Tommy will help you unpack it and live it. Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you, Joanna. This was awesome. I appreciate the time.